Hello. Today I am talking with Garrett Mason, and Garrett is a politician from Maine and a businessman. Garrett, you were in the state Senate at a very young age in Maine, and right now you're eyeing a run in the GOP primaries for governor. Garrett, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. We got, I think, 35 days left. So, closing in.
Perfect. So, why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself, fill in some of the holes that I left?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I got elected to office, like I said, pretty young, age 25, and I wasn't always involved in politics. I actually came from sports management. I worked for the Red Sox affiliate here in Maine, and then worked in minor league hockey for a while. And from there, I had my first taste on why, the government can be a problem not only in your personal life but in your business. And it was a sales tax on hockey tickets. And so that's kind of what radicalized me and got me into politics. And ended up running against an 18-year incumbent. On election night, we won by 11% of the vote, and that kind of changed the trajectory of my life. And so for 8 years, I got to serve in the Maine Senate, representing, the people that I grew up with, which was amazing. 4 of those years, I served as majority leader in the state Senate, and I know a lot of people don't think that Maine is a purple state, but it very much is. And so we were able to hold control of that for 6 years out of the 8 that I was there, and fought for a lot of things. I mean, I chair the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, which I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions about. Also, passionate about education, school choice, and government waste and spending. I mean, I'm the only candidate in this race who's actually done something to affect all those things in your life. And so, since I left public office in 2018, I started my own business, started a public affairs company where we work for companies. We represent people in front of the legislature, so farmers, construction workers, funeral directors. But we also do corporate relations outside of that as well. My wife and I own a construction company. We build small, under 1,000 square foot homes, and so we do that as well. So the past 8 years have been pretty busy for us since leaving the legislature, but I really just couldn't sit by and watch what was going on here in Maine anymore and not do something about it, with the God-given experiences that I've had. So we're out there trying to make the case to voters, that experience matters in this election, and that's what we're going to do.
Perfect. Well, my first question for you is about something that I know is very, very important to many Maynards and many people that visit Maine. I want to talk about the moose hunt. And I know that there's been some changes maybe going on with the lottery
Yeah.
and the guide industry. So, talk to me a little bit about that, hunting as a sport and the moose lottery in particular.
Well, I mean, it's no secret that in Maine, moose hunting is big business. Brings in a lot of money to our state every year, and the permits are worth a lot of money as well. Both another little known fact about me is my I served alongside of both of my parents. So my mom served in the legislature right with me. My dad is currently in the legislature, and both of them served on the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee, which oversees the moose hunt and all of the licenses and guides, camps, all of that stuff. And this year, there'd been a lot of changes to Maine's moose lottery. And, if those changes are good or bad, I think remain to be seen. But I can tell you this, that, there's a lot of people in our state who their dream is to go on a moose hunt and, get all four trophies under their belt. And it's getting harder and harder for Maine people to get a moose permit. And so one of the things that I think we have to be careful of in Maine is monetizing all of these moose licenses to the point where it's out of reach for the average Mainer or that hunter who just wants to come here and enjoy Maine just that one time in their life. So I am concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the impact that that has on our economy as well. We have some other things that we can certainly talk about, which have been really harmful to our economy in regards to hunting. But the moose hunt is a very special thing, and we have to protect it the best way that we can and not turn it into a free-for-all for people to make a lot of money off of.
Okay, perfect. And now that we've kind of broke the ice, your general overview on the Second Amendment, what are kind of your views on firearms and guns?
Listen, I mean, the Maine Constitution is pretty clear. Article 1, Section 16 is very clear that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be questioned. And in my opinion, it's even more direct than the federal Second Amendment. And that's pretty simple to me. I think that the Maine Constitution and the federal Constitution very clearly dictate that you cannot prohibit people from owning guns. So I've been very pro Second Amendment, making sure people have the right to defend themselves, but also that they have the right to have a weapon to hunt with. I don't know that you'd find a better friend of the Second Amendment than me, and my voting record proves that.
Sure. Well, and you know what happens here is, I asked that question and it kind of like wipes out everything else thereafter because, you've asserted your support. But we're going to change gears here a little bit. So Maine's had some changes in the laws, and you now have like a red flag law versus formerly yellow flag law. What's your view on that whole entire dynamic? And I guess we could start with the red flag, the yellow flag, where we are today.
Yeah. So, I mean, the red flag law, just for context for people, was passed at citizens referendum. So basically, the anti-gun lobby went out, collected 80,000 plus signatures to get the red flag law on the ballot. I believe it was last year, in the election last year. It passed overwhelmingly. It was a pretty strong vote in favor of that in an off-year election. So I think it was a 70-30 victory for the red flag law. But, I agree with voices as diverse of Janet Mills and Paula Page. I mean, that's a pretty broad swath of people who opposed that red flag law. And unfortunately, because of millions and millions of dollars pumped in on lies, they were able to win that victory at the ballot box. But I think it's a real problem for due process, for people's right to be able to have a gun based purely on speculation or hearsay. So I think that that's a real problem. The yellow flag law, there was a lot of people in this state who worked really hard to find a compromise that felt like met the muster of most people. Um, you know, uh, After the horrific Lewiston shooting, I live in Lisbon Falls, right next door to Lewiston, so that's very uh, that was pretty close to home for us. But if the yellow flag law simply would have been followed, that shooting may not have happened. And so we weren't even implementing the laws that we had on the books when folks came in and tried to make an argument that it wasn't good enough. So I think that these laws speak for themselves. I think they're a huge infringement on people's rights, their constitutional rights, and it's something that I would work to amend significantly. I think there's a common moniker in the legislature where people say, "Well, you can't oppose the citizens' referendum, or you can't go back and change that." I've never held that view. I've sponsored legislation to repeal things that I think went wrong on the ballot, and not afraid to do it again.
Sure. And part of this red flag scenario now in Maine, there's a big budget push, I guess, for state level SWAT officers that are to be enforcing these red flag laws. What are your thoughts on that?
Listen, Maine has a crime problem. There's no question about it. I mean, we've traditionally been ranked as one of the safest places in the entire country, and I don't doubt that that's probably true. But that's not to say that if you live here, you notice something very different. Um, I'm on the county commission right now. I'm a glutton for punishment. Like I, go to get elected at these places, right? But we oversee the jail. And there was a time when I first came into office, early 2020, that we were making $700,000 on our jail. And now we're paying out over $1 million because of the increased crime in the Lewiston Auburn area and in our county. So I'm not one to oppose additional funds for law enforcement where it makes sense. But I think that, you mentioning that just in general shows that we have a problem and that we have people and that we need to make sure that people have their Second Amendment rights. Because if we're putting that kind of effort into our law enforcement, then we probably have a problem and we shouldn't be restricting people's rights to own a firearm.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm going to go down a couple of legislative items that, are either being teased or have already been, defeated, but are, might still be on the sidelines here. And these are all, national topics as well as specific to Maine now. And I think Maine's going to be one of the new battlegrounds on gun rights, in my opinion. So, um, what about large capacity magazines, so-called large capacity magazines, and banning them?
Hmm. I have a long history of opposing that. I think I think it's one of those things that focused group really well. When Michael
Hmm.
Bloomberg asked the question, right?
Sure.
But I don't think in reality it makes that much of a difference. Um, I think if you have a large capacity magazine and you want to go out to the firing range, it makes the day a lot more fun. But in reality, there's not any evidence that shows that that would have stopped something, or would have made it less likely that an event would have occurred. You only need to look here in Lewiston to know, that mass casualties can happen with or without high capacity magazines. And you're only ending up hurting, the law-abiding citizen, in that case.
Perfect. One of the other initiatives that, was a push was a safe storage law. And I think that got defeated, right? What was
I
your
did, yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
yeah, your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think we should encourage safe storage any time we can, but mandating that in a home, in somebody's personal private residence, I think you also end up running into a problem where, you are at a disadvantage if somebody comes into your home. If you're not going to be able to get to your weapons fast enough to defend yourself and your family. So I think that each individual gun owner needs to make, the decision for themselves as to how they store their gun, not the government.
Okay, perfect. There was also a study that was being pushed around on the use of lead ammunition. Do you see any potential pitfalls with that, or maybe underlying motivations?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I'm not particularly up to speed on that. I remember that being a perennial issue, to be honest with you, in the legislature that came up quite a bit. But I mean, it's something that I remember in the past that we opposed traditionally as a caucus, banning that ammunition. I know that there was some studies, I believe it was, I know Maine Inland Fisheries and Wildlife did some work on it as well. I can't say I'm super versed on it, but I'm not apt to support any kind of ban on that type of ammunition.
Okay, perfect. And Janet Mills allowed a law go into effect on so-called ghost guns and unfinished frames and receivers. I guess just talk to me a little bit about your view on that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the ghost gun situation is, once again, you're punishing the law abider. Um, you know, I think anybody can shave a serial number off a gun. I think anybody can print a 3D weapon. But in the end, you're only giving that opportunity to somebody who wants to break the law, in that they're going to make that anyways. So no matter if you ban it or not, those things can still happen. People can override 3D printers. People can do those type of things. So it's a scenario, once again, where you're only hurting someone who's going to follow the law.
Right. Okay. And there's now a push, and it's a bill that's moving around to work to restore the rights for nonviolent felons. So how do you feel about rights restorations?
I think it's a case by case situation. I think you have to look at it. I have heard about that push in the legislature. It's something that I would consider supporting, especially if it's nonviolent crime. But I would be interested to see how that bill is crafted and turned out, because the specifics on that really matter.
Okay. But overall, the concept of rights restoration, I guess, what's your, I guess your specific
Yeah,
view, not to any specific legislation.
not any specific legislation, but I think largely it would depend on the violence. Like I think it would depend, if somebody committed a serious crime with a weapon that hurt someone, I think we have to take a look at that. But on the flip side, if it's a nonviolent felony that you went to jail for, I think there's a conversation around that.
Sure. Okay. There's a budget amendment that would add over, I guess, $500,000 in funds to provide state legislators home security equipment. That's being pushed by the Democratic lawmakers. What are your thoughts about that?
Listen, as someone who was a state legislator and had threats made against them, and someone whose parents served in the legislature, I can tell you that threats are very real. But I can tell you that I don't think we should be paying for people's security systems. I think they're pretty inexpensive on Amazon or if you go through ADT for monitoring services. So it's not something that I'm supportive of, but I am supportive of making sure that legislators are safe and like that, that Capitol Police, that they know how to contact Capitol Police of any threats that are made against them, and that they know how to protect themselves when necessary. So yeah, probably wouldn't be in favor of providing security cameras to legislators, but I understand the concern.
Yep, I got you. We were talking about how the red flag law came into being via referendum, ballot measure. I guess there's a rumor that there's going to be one maybe for so-called, assault weapons. Um, and if it's a referendum, it's not like you've got a lot that you could do about it. But talk to me about, I guess, your view on what people are calling so-called assault weapons and banning them.
Well, I think it's a convenient use of terminology. And I think when you say assault weapons, I remember this graph that was passed around like not a graph, but a graphic that was passed around like 10 years ago that kind of showed the uninformed person what certain features on an assault weapon were that were actually safety features and made the gun a lot more safe for people to use, not less safe and more automatic. I think when people hear assault weapons, they think automatic weapon, and it's a definition war that the left has made on people who are enthusiasts of these type of weapons. So, in my opinion, I would strongly oppose something like that. I think the way things are right now are perfectly fine, and it wouldn't be anything that I would support.
Gotcha. We're just about wrapping up here. I got two more kind of points and questions. Uh, the one here is, what am I leaving on the table about the Second Amendment that you maybe want to get out there to potential voters, in your
I
view?
think, yeah, I mean, I think for so many people, the Second Amendment, when they hear the Second Amendment, I think the left particularly has really driven into people's mind that it's about hunting, and that's not
Right.
really what it's all about. Of course, that's part of it, but it's about defending yourself from a tyrannical government. That's why the Second Amendment was put into place. And so, I would warn people to be very cautious when they start hearing a gun rights advocate talk about what the Second Amendment is, because I haven't heard one yet articulated it appropriately or correctly. So if I could say one thing to voters, it was buyer beware and make sure you're getting your information from all sources before you make a decision.
Gotcha. Um, Garrett, give me your final pitch. What else do you want to get out there just about you, your race, and everything you've got going on?
I think in Maine, we have a unique opportunity to be a bastion of freedom in the Northeast. And I think that the next governor needs to be ready to go on day one. And as far as the Republicans go, I can't speak for the Democrats, but as far as the Republicans go, there is only one person in this race that has the experience and proven record to do the things that we're talking about. Everything that we've talked about today, I've cast votes on. Everything that we've talked about today, I have a proven record that I can go back to and say that I've fought and I've delivered for Maine voters. So when you go to the polls on June 9th, I think what you really need to think about is who's been in the trenches, who's fought the fights, and who's actually won. And I think when you think about those things, you're going to come to one conclusion. And so I'd ask for people's vote on June 9th. It's a really crowded seven-way primary, but I think we need experience in this election, and I have that.
Perfect, Garrett. Where can people find you online? How could they support you? Toss me your socials, all that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah, go head on over to masonformaine.com. From there, you can go to all of our socials and learn more about the campaign, how you can get involved, and even more importantly, donate, right? So, would love to have people support.
Garrett, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking with you today.
Same. Thanks, John.